For years, the name Jeffrey Epstein has been synonymous with a pretty dark world of power and abuse, right? Well, now, a new release of documents is threatening to blow the lid off even more names and reignite a scandal that has already shaken society to its absolute core.
Look, this isn't just about going over old headlines. This is about secrets that have been hidden for a long, long time, finally being dragged into the light. The release of these new files, it could be a seismic event, confirming things people have suspected for years, and maybe, just maybe, revealing the full monstrous scope of Epstein's operation.
So, to really get why this new release is such a huge deal, we have to go back. Where did all of this deep public distrust, in this case, even start? It all started with how the system handled Epstein the first time around. Back in 2007, he gets arrested for sex trafficking. But just a year later, a secret and super controversial plea deal let him completely avoid a federal trial, which, by the way, could have meant life in prison. Instead, he got to plead guilty to much, much lesser state charges down in Florida. And a sentence for these absolutely horrific crimes? Get this. A mere 13 months. And it was served in a private wing of a county jail with work release privileges that let him leave the jail for up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. It's just unbelievable. This deal did so much more than just give Epstein a slap on the wrist. It silenced his victims. It shut down a federal investigation without them even knowing. Their stories were just buried under a mountain of legal paperwork. And it cemented this really bitter idea in the public's mind of a two-tiered justice system, one for the rich and connected, and another one for everybody else.
So, for about a decade, all that outrage just kind of simmered below the surface. But then, in 2019, Epstein was arrested again on federal sex trafficking charges. And this time, well, the world was a very different place. And you could just feel the difference in the air, right? It was night and day. Back in 2009, people were mad, sure, but it just couldn't get enough traction. By 2019, though, the hashtag #MeToo movement had totally shifted the cultural landscape. It empowered survivors to speak out, and it created a public that was just done. They were no longer willing to tolerate these kinds of abuses. They wanted real answers, and they wanted justice. And with this new indictment, the details that came out were just horrifying. We started hearing about a global trafficking ring, about private jets with that infamous nickname, the Lolita Express. We heard about a private island hideaway down in the Caribbean, and of course, the alleged central role of his associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, in recruiting and grooming victims. The sheer scale of it all was just staggering. The world was basically holding its breath, waiting for a trial that was supposed to blow the lid off of everything and expose everyone involved. But then, on August 10th, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his jail cell. The official cause of death was ruled a suicide. That official explanation was met with immediate, widespread skepticism. I mean, how could a guy this high profile, a man who held the secrets of some of the most powerful people on the planet, just die while under constant surveillance? The phrase, Epstein didn't kill himself, totally blew up. It became this cultural meme, a kind of shorthand for the deep distrust people felt toward the official story and the system itself. But here's the thing, Epstein's death wasn't the end of the story, not even close. Instead, it just opened a brand new chapter, one that wasn't being driven by prosecutors, but by the relentless courage of his victims. You see, the first real peek behind the curtain didn't come from a criminal investigation. It came from civil suits, lawsuits between individuals. The most famous one was a defamation case filed by accuser Virginia Giuffre against Ghislaine Maxwell. This is where the fight for transparency really started to pick up steam. These first document drops gave us some really revealing glimpses into Epstein's network, and they confirmed this wider circle of associates. But man, they were also super frustrating. Key names and details were blacked out with these thick redaction lines, which just fueled more suspicion that the biggest players were still being protected. And that, right there, brings us up to today. More files are being prepared for release. So the big question is, what makes this new set of documents so different and so potentially explosive? Well, this new release is different. It's not just the result of a civil suit between two people. As you can see here, this is the end result of a long, hard fight by victims and by media organizations who took their case all the way to federal court. And that court has now ordered these documents, which are part of a governmental investigation, to be unsealed.
And what are we actually talking about here? We're not just talking flight logs or lists of names. These new documents could contain sworn deposition testimonies, affidavits, private emails. We're talking direct investigative materials that have been locked away until now. This is the kind of evidence that could potentially link people directly to what was going on. So, the big hope, right? The hope is that these files will finally answer the crucial questions. Who are all the John Does and Jane Does we've heard about in previous filings? What really happened on those flights and on that island? And the biggest question of all, are we finally going to see the kind of hard evidence that leads to real accountability? I mean, think about it. For anyone whose name appears in these documents in a less than flattering light, the stakes could not be higher. We're talking about their reputations, their legacies, and yeah, in some cases, maybe even their freedom.
But with all the speculation about powerful names, it is so important that we remember who is at the absolute center of this story: the victims. For them, this is another painful but necessary step in a long, brutal fight. Every one of these releases is a form of public validation, a renewed hope that maybe, just maybe, accountability is still possible.
Because ultimately, this case has always been about more than just one man. It's a damning indictment of an entire system, a system of wealth, influence, and a code of silence that allowed a predator to operate without consequences for decades. And so, as these new files get unsealed, the entire world is watching, and the fundamental question is still hanging in the air. With new truths about to come out, will the system that failed so badly before finally deliver justice? Or will the shadows just remain, protecting the powerful once again?